Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? And welcome to Awaken Your Intuition. Such an honor to have Wynne here with us today. Wynne is a shamanic psychotherapist, energy healer, and published author based in Ireland. She teaches people how to connect their mind, heart, and soul to access their inner wisdom, to let go of fear, and become available for life. Abby's published many books. Her publishers include Hay House and Gill Books, and she also published a coloring book with her daughter. With a background in adult literacy and course design, Abby offers online classes, pre-recorded healing sessions, and guided meditations. She also runs an energy healing circle and meets monthly with her online group healing sessions. We'll share all the links for that. Abby has appeared as a guest on News Talk, Ireland AM, Q102, Dublin City FM, Hay House Radio, and other various internet podcasts. Her articles have been published in The Independent on Sunday, thejournal.ie, Woman's Way, Soul and Destiny, and Your Family magazine in South Africa. Join Abby for online classes such as her twice yearly 21-day Raise Your Vibration Bootcamp, and try her pre-recorded self-paced 5-day classes to raise your vibration. Abby, welcome.
Thank you so much for asking me, Amanda. It's so cool to be here. I love doing podcasts.
Yay! Well, Abby, would you I'd love to just dive right in there, and would you share a little bit about your journey and what got you into the healing arts and this incredible work that you do in the world?
Oh, thank you so much. It's hard to know where to begin. Actually, when I was thinking about this, I actually go back in time to when I was a really little girl stuck in traffic in the car and bored. I don't know if you've ever been there yourself.
Yes.
And there's cars lining up to turn right because we're in Ireland, so turning right is the difficult turn, and all of the indicators going at the same time and all the flashing lights, and I'm sitting there with my head in my hands going, this is crazy, and all these lights are out of synchrony and they're really annoying me. So I just connected into some inner source power in me, which of course you don't know you're doing this when you're a kid. And I said, I want all the lights to flash at the same time. And nothing really happened until I put my will behind it. Now, as a grown-up, obviously, I have the words for what I was doing at the time, but I got in tune with those lights flashing. And then I used my will to make them all flash at the same time. And they did. And I was like, oh my God. And then, of course, the lights turned green and everyone would go. And then I'd say, that didn't really happen. But I started doing it time and time again. And I wasn't really sure if this was a superpower or not. And when I thought about it, I was thinking, well, if it was a superpower, I wish I had a different one, because you can't really do very much traffic lights. But that was the first time I really went, I suppose, out of convention into my own source power and tried to, well, maybe manipulate the field or something. I don't know what you would call it, but I always kind of had that tucked away. And then when I was in school and, abiding by rules, my family isn't a typical family, growing up in a minority group in Dublin. I didn't have to go and do all the things everybody else did. So I kind of had a sense of, well, I wasn't born up Catholic, so we didn't grow up in Catholic Ireland. I wasn't religious, so I didn't have to unlearn stuff. And working through my own stuff when I was growing up and realizing what was really annoying me and what was really opening to me was just kind of interesting. But I remember then, to go along the timeline of my life when I realized Santa Claus wasn't real. And then it felt like all the magic extinguished itself from the world all in one go. And yet I still had that niggle behind me saying, yeah, but you can do that thing with the traffic, with the indicator lights in the car. And I'm going, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. And then it was a journey from losing that sense of magic back to finding your own authenticity and realizing that the magic is there. And it really came from the understanding of language, which basically people put so much baggage around language that you tune into the baggage and not what the words actually mean. And so when I went on a process of discovery of taking apart what the words mean, excuse me, dividing up the energy and pulling out the actual truth from what people say the truth is, that kind of became my quest. So that kind of concept of seeing, well, there's a lot of stuff around the truth of this, and maybe all of it is truth for somebody, but where's the actual truth? You know, like there's your side of the story, there's my side of the story, and then there's the truth. And having that at the center of my being led me then to realize that my side of the story is not the truth. And that's huge. It's my truth. And some of it, even when you go deeper, isn't even truth to me. It's just stuff I'm telling myself to get on with things. So that kind of set the foundation for the spiritual journey I was going to go on for the rest of my life.
Wow. I mean, that right there is so profound and so huge. It's like, oh, I've just got to take that in. And what I really hear you say is like, listening to your inner voice, that, your higher self, that guidance, and also knowing that there's other things from personal experiences that kind of come into that almost deciphering what we hear from our higher selves, and at the same time empowering yourself and taking your power back from, like, it's like on an unconscious, subconscious level, we're always kind of giving away our power, be it to a teacher or, a sibling, a parent, or, a stranger. It's like, oh, they know better. I'm going to take their word.
Amanda, absolutely. But I hit the ground running from a family that was doing that anyway, if you know what I mean. So I didn't have all that unlearning of rules to do. I'll give you the most wonderful example is my grandmother, my father's mother. And we were Jewish. And there was nowhere to send your children to school. When my grandmother was looking for somewhere for my dad and my auntie and my uncle to go to school, there wasn't anywhere that would accept them. So she said, feck this, as you do. And she created her own school out of nothing. She got together all the leaders of the community and all the people who had the money. And she said, this is what we're going to do. And this is what I want. And I need you to support me. And they all did. And the school is still going. And my children are now going to that school. It's a secondary school. And, and they're so excited to have my children there. And for me, that pioneering spirit of, well, we need it and it's not there. Let's not just have this whole culture of expectation that the government will facilitate everything that we need. Let's just get up and do it ourselves and create something and make it happen. And so that trickled down through the family as well. I mean, her husband, my grandfather, was an entrepreneur, and he went around knocking on doors to building up a factory to employing loads of people, and then my father now has been saying the same thing. He swears to me for 15 years he's been saying the same thing, but now people are listening to him, and he's a pioneer in setting standards for people working on oil rigs and very high risk industry for the fire protection, because he didn't take sides and he looked at what everyone was saying was the truth. And then he cut away all of the stuff that was his story, their story, your story, to see what the real truth was. And that's what he's been saying for all these time. And it's only now that people in his industry are actually listening. Wow. And I find that fascinating, because even though my father and his background is entrepreneur, he went door to door selling fire extinguishers, then he became selling fire protective clothing, and now he's talking about standards and guidelines and how to protect people properly without an agenda, without politics. And we have so much to talk about when it comes to business, because even though I'm in the healing arts, you can see it everywhere. People giving their story, and this is the way it's supposed to be, and they're not telling what the truth of everything is, and they're not brave enough to dive deep and actually tease apart what they've created in themselves to see, well, what's the truth? What's my truth? And what's not truth? And I think that we're all coming to a paradigm where we are forced to do it now. We're absolutely forced to do it now. And to live when, authentically is not just a catchphrase. It's actually something that you actually do. And it's not the easy road, but by goodness, it's the abundant road. It's the richness of life. And you can sit there with your cup of tea and your torn jeans, with your jumper on, with loads of love in your life, not very much money in the bank, but you're happier than you would be if you were in the mansion with, you know, the designer label and the car and everything, and not having that connection to your heart and the connection into your intuition. So that's kind of how I see it. So,
yeah. And I think you can definitely be in a larger home or whatever size you want and be authentic and be connected. I think you can create that life. But what I hear you saying is from the beginning, coming from that place of authenticity, and not just, again, this comes back to being connected, right? And, you know, not listening to voices outside of yourself, or being able to decipher that. And then, you know, it's like there's so much energy wasted when you're going around pretending and portraying and trying to create an image. It's like you're exhausted versus like, you know, what is my truth? And I love that you're sharing this, Abby. So, you know, and I feel that, yes, this is what people that want to live a conscious life want. And it's like, how does one do that? Like, yes, I want to live completely authentically. But how does one do that if they think they are, but you do feel that there's a discrepancy, there's a gap between living completely authentically and trying to, like, what are some of the main things that you would suggest to help people kind of bridge that gap and get to the raw truth of who they are and how they want to live in the world?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one. It's funny because I just finished writing a book called Heal Your Inner Wounds. And the book that I wrote before that is called How to Be Well. So How to Be Well looks at your day-to-day life, your life situation, where you're giving your power away and how to take it back. And the reason why you need to do that work first is because if you're going to go then and dive deep and heal your inner wounds, but you're not living in balance, you're not stable, you're not powerful in your day-to-day activity, then you don't have the extra bit of power that you need to go deep and heal all the trauma and the wounding that happened to you in the past. So the first thing I would say is look at your day-to-day life. What's working, what's not working there. And make the little changes that actually have a big, deeper impact. So it's like you say, Amanda, you know what I learned recently, which anyone listening will find fascinating. Any agreement that you make with anybody takes your energy from you. So I'll give you, you know, like an old friend, you bump into them when you're shopping. Oh, it's great to see you. How are you? We must meet for coffee. Yeah, let's meet for coffee. When you say the, yeah, let's meet for coffee, and you feel the drop in you going, oh my gosh, do I really want to meet this person for coffee? And then you walk away from them. That's you losing energy. And then you're continuing your shopping, you're continuing your day, and that loss turns into a weight that you carry around.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
You know, which you could clear, which you could, you know, so you sit down. So to start with, what's all of this that I'm carrying with the agreements that I've made with people, places, things, whatever, that are heavy to me? Now, here's the thing. You see, you don't need to automatically take out your machete and go smash everything. No, what you need to do is open your own awareness to yourself. And so by writing the list, well, this feels heavy and this feels heavy and this feels heavy, and I'm not really crazy about this, so yeah, I'll stick that on the heavy list. You end up with your list of all your things that are weighing you down. And then you go into it deeper and group them together and see, well, is there any similarity? And then here's the difficult part. This is what you have to ask yourself. What is the story that I am telling myself about this thing that's making it feel heavy to me? So let's go back to the old school friend that you haven't seen in years, that you feel that weight. Now, I'm sure everybody's felt that. So let's look at that. What does that actually mean? Okay, well, if I was to meet this friend for coffee, what are my expectations of the meeting that's putting pressure on me, that's draining my energy, and are they absolutely 100% true? Or am I just making assumptions that this is what it's going to be? You see, and as you go through these details, this is when you learn the difference between the lies you tell yourself, because let's just say it, folks, you know, you tell yourself lies, and then your actual intuitive capability, which is reading into the energy and telling you it's a bad idea or a good idea. And the only way that you are really going to get clarity, it's like that note, you know, the note that's fully in tune, that's clear and strong, is if you eliminate all of the stories, all of the heaviness, all of the things that you tell yourself about things, your limiting beliefs, because that's what's clouding the trueness, the, you know, that resonance, the vibrancy of your intuition. And that's why most people, I find, Amanda, don't trust their intuition, because what they're hearing is so jumbled and mixed up that they can't tell the difference between what is their truth and what they're telling themselves to be a good girl or to be a nice person, or mama said I had to be like this, so this is what I'm telling myself, but it doesn't, you know, and all of that needs to come off.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So such rich, juicy, powerful stuff that you're sharing. And I completely agree. And for me, that's where, you know, my meditation practice comes in, because it's like, it lets you kind of decipher and feel as things arise in your meditation. It allows you just to quiet that monkey mind, you know, old wounds that come up, and just like feel into, you know, and that's why just being still and being quiet. And, you know, I loved when you shared at the beginning, you were like, oh, I knew I had a superpower, you know, with the lights. And, you know, what it brought me back to right away was, as a little girl, being on horseback. I, you know, I had a pony, and literally I would go for hours. We'd go up the Sugarloaf Mountain close by our house, and the cars would go by. Now, this be funny. This is kind of a little bit similar story, but I would want to add up the numbers on the number plates of the car, and I wanted them to add up to the number of 20. So that's a little bit like yours. And I'd be like, okay, I don't mind if I have to minus the numbers or multiply them, but it has to come to 20. And the minute I heard you say that, I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like, oh my God. I started like, oh, I want this to happen. And same thing, like the cars would, you know, add up to 20. So I wanted to share that with you, because when you started sharing, I was like, oh my gosh, she's a sister. I love that.
Maybe we all have these little things that we do, and it's because we never talk about them. You actually, it reminds me of that, you know, the countdown where they put all the numbers up, and you could do plus, minus, divide, subtract, but you have to come to the number at the end that you have to get. So yeah, absolutely.
There it is. But there it is. But, you know, but the other side to that is just being out in the wilderness, like, you know, going up the Sugarloaf, going along, like just me and my horse, you know, who, of course, we know horses are just pure intuition. But it was like that silence, and there was never a loneliness. There was just this silence. And, you know, whether you just have it and you sit in your apartment and you close your eyes, or you get to be out in nature, there's something about that because when you just meditate for 5 minutes, you find that silence. But then it's like those old stories and patterns and beliefs, like the more silence that you have on some levels lets those stories quieten more and more. And again, it lets you get more and more to that raw truth. And I loved hearing you share. And actually, that was a really good reminder for me when you said, you know, if you say to somebody, yeah, let's catch up, and like, you feel it in your heart, you feel like that tightness in your body. You're like, no, like I just told a lie there. I would not love to get together. And, you know, it's like coming more to your truth, being more authentic. What's in the highest good for one is always in the highest good for the other. And just like, how would you suggest somebody would handle a situation?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking that, because, you know, when you're being your authentic self, you can't jump with joy to meet somebody that you don't want to meet. So I'll give you an example that, you know, recently I gave a workshop, and it was coloring for manifestation, and it was really great fun because I made a coloring book with my daughter, and it's actually a healing coloring book. So we did a whole afternoon session on connecting in, releasing limiting beliefs, connecting into the energy and all of that. So it ended up that one of the people that did the workshop was an art teacher. So he wrote to me and he says, I loved what you did and I want to bring it into my classes, and can we chat and can we WhatsApp and can we meet for coffee and this and that and the other. And he sends me a photograph of himself with his dog, just in case I forgot who he was, you know, from the workshop. So I took a step back for a minute because, you know, I get a lot of really, you know, all these pictures of men with boats and, oh, your hair is so beautiful and I want to talk to you. And sometimes they're actually men who need a bit of help. So I don't like to just say no to everyone. I like to feel in, because now my intuition is pretty good, can tell me, that guy actually, it's a real thing. But then I wrote to him, this guy with the picture of the dog and the beautiful request, because I imagined what it was like for him. And I said, I'm really glad to hear from you. And of course I remember you. And it's wonderful that you're so enthusiastic about the work I'm doing. However, I get a lot of requests all the time from people who want to meet me for coffee, who want to chat with me, and it really puts pressure on my energy levels. So I made a decision for self-care, and I decided that I'm not going to get involved like that with people so simply. However, I am available if you do want to have a formal chat with me, because as a teacher, you might want to look at ways that you can bring this in. So why don't you go and do some research, have a think, and then you can approach me, or we can book in a session together where we can do brainstorming, masterminding, mentoring, that kind of thing. And he was thrilled with that. And he actually wrote back and he said, I never thought of it that way. I didn't see it like that. And I totally get it. And you're right. I need to think this through more thoroughly, and I'll make a list and I'll do my research and I'll come back and we'll have actual concrete things to talk about when we do meet. So that's how, so
I love that.
So not every time you say no to someone isn't going to hurt them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you actually, what you did was you empowered him as well. It's like, and also I feel like every time you honor yourself, you inspire others to do exactly the same. And, again, it's also that ripple effect. You like walk your talk, speak your truth, honor your time, self-care, which we all know how important those things are. And when you are that and teaching that, of course, it creates that ripple effect consciously anyway. But then when you just live that by that way, you just inspired that man. And who knows if he might need to do it in other areas of his life. And it's just an invitation to kind of rise up in a way.
So, the question is, how do you authentically say no to something? And then you have to take that risk that you're going to hurt their feelings. So really, when you're thinking about this, it's being so clear in you that there's no denial in you whatsoever that saying no is the thing that you have to do. And then you work with that. I have whole sections in my book about language and communication, negotiation, conflict resolution from an energetic point of view, because I feel that we are energetic beings. I studied psychotherapy, I went to counseling. None of that got me out of my head, obviously. And your emotions and your passion and your joy they're not stored in your head. You can elicit feelings of joy by telling yourself you're happy over and over again, and maybe believing yourself, but the actual feelings comes from the heart, comes from the gut, comes from the soul. So that's why I studied shamanism and became a Reiki master teacher, Seiken master teacher, and realized when I opened my private practice that I couldn't just offer them as separate things. Because you can talk and talk and talk and talk, and then I'm not going to say to a client, well, we'll come back next week and do the healing part. You want to heal it there and then. So the act of giving yourself permission to heal something, the act of giving yourself permission to see something. If you write your list, the list that I spoke about of all of the stories that you're telling yourself about all that, you might need to sit in that meditation space and ask your angels, please give me the strength that I need to learn what I need to learn about myself so I can change it. Because that's the only thing you can change. And if you're so busy projecting outwards, well, it's her fault and it's his fault and he did this and they did that, then you're not going to come inwards and say, well, I gave my power to that story. I gave my power to that person. I stood back and I knew I should have said something and I didn't. And you're not going to own that. And even getting to the stage before the stage where you're ready to say, no, I can't meet you for that coffee, but to the stage of knowing that with your whole essence of being, that you need to put yourself up there on the list as important as everybody else is huge.
Absolutely, yeah. And I love that. And it's like anything, it's like a muscle, it gets stronger. You want to work out your biceps, the more you do it, the stronger that muscle will be. And what I'm hearing is as you get more and more clear as to who your authentic self is, as you go through these amazing practices that you're sharing with us, I think the most important thing is to pause, first of all. So let's say you just met that old friend, and it's coming back to, hey, do you want to meet Saturday for coffee? You give yourself that chance for pause, and you say, you know what, I'll have to get back to you about that, if that's okay. Because in that second, you may not know if you do want to meet her for coffee. You kind of might feel like it's fun in the moment, but that's just a fleeting moment thing, and it will give you a chance.
Okay, you're saying it to do the right thing, but you know what happens, Amanda? Let's take that one step further, right? So you said yes to that friend, and you've got this feeling of dread. It doesn't start out obviously as a feeling of dread. It's like a little feeling of being off with yourself. Then you have this feeling that builds up and builds up over time. And then she sends you a Facebook message. When are we going to meet for coffee? And you're like, oh my God. So what if, so I'm going to throw this out there as a possibility. What if that feeling of dread is based on something that did or didn't happen, but you're actually remembering something and blaming her for something that happened at school, for example, or 10 years ago, or 50, whatever. And that you haven't forgiven her for something, or you haven't actually forgiven yourself for something, but you're so involved in the intricacies and the day-to-day of your life right now that you've lost touch with what that thing is, and all you've got is the feeling, which is coming from your intuition, which says there's something not right here. So what if you did then take the space to go into that feeling and to have it sit with you and say, well, what is this about? Why am I dreading meeting this person? And then, connecting into the responsible adult that you are, because we all go back into our inner child, or you're back in the schoolyard where she took your ice cream from you, or whatever the heck it was, but you're here as the grown-up saying, I will not let anything bad happen to me. Now, everyone who's listening right now, can you do this right now? I will not let anything bad happen to me. And do you feel that vibrating through your bones at 100% as a truth? And I could say, hand on heart, I bet you no is the answer. And that's what we're really afraid of, is that we do not step up and look after ourselves. And we believe, we need to believe at 100% I'm here for me. And when you are here 100% for you, then you can go and meet this person and they've got no power over you. And then you release the feeling of dread. And then you say, do you remember that thing? You stole my boyfriend and I've never forgiven you. That whatever that thing was. And then they laugh and then you clear it and then that feeling lifts. What actually happens is you've released another part of you. Your power comes back, but you've also released that person from the story. And then they have that opportunity to get that piece of themselves back too. And so it could be that meeting that person for coffee is the best and most important thing that could happen to both of you in the whole year. So, so you have to be with the truth to be able to go and get the healing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And again, it's like that pause, give yourself, can I get back to you about that, and pause and sit with it, see how it feels in your body, your emotional. And I love that. It's like, that could have been the greatest gift for the pair of you, because I really do believe what's in the highest good for one is in the highest good for the other. And that's just a beautiful example that you just gave us of exactly that.
I mean, I say in my book, and I say all the time, we experience resistance to doing our work. And there's two kinds of resistance. There's the resistance because it's not the right thing to do. And there's the resistance because you just plain don't want to do it. And so it might not be the right thing to do for now, and that's fine. And, and I have this wonderful, and everybody is welcome to come to my website, by the way, and download my guide to choosing a therapist or a therapy that's good for you. Because again, we're looking at giving your power away. Oh, somebody went to somebody and they were great, and you go there and you don't feel that from them in your intuition. The questions to ask to remind yourself that you don't have to give your power away to somebody who you believe is in authority. You are your own authority. So by holding your ground and keeping your power in with you and asking all those questions, you make the decision. So there's the resistance to doing the work. That's what I was saying, is that you're not feeling strong enough. And that's when prayer for me comes in. My little 9-year-old, she's going to be 10 next year. She says, Mama, my favorite quote of yours is, God changes you and you change things. And that really puts things into perspective, because, with all the disasters and the terrorist attacks and, every week it's pray for a different country. And then people are saying, but prayers aren't doing it. Prayers aren't going to fix it. No, of course they're not, because God didn't, make that guy go and do anything. He went and did it himself. So until we live on the ground from our authentic truth, God or spirit or the universe is here to support us and give us the strength we need to do the things we need to do. You know, I'm working on at the moment in myself, in my own quest. You know, is it supposed to happen this way, or how much do we intervene? Do you know what I mean? There's always that question of, oh, well, it's for the highest good and spirit would make it, so I'm not going to get involved. But what happens if you do get involved? And it's like my grandmother deciding she's going to take hold of the reins and say, right, we need a school for our children. I'm going to make one. Or you could sit back and say, well, it's not meant to be because spirit didn't make it for us, so we're not going to do one. You know, we're the ones living here. We are spirit. You know, and you come from that framework of we are God experiencing fragments of itself, or we are in the great dream, and we have our unique blueprint, and we're here to make changes and to learn and to grow. And if something is pushing you to be done, like my grandmother needed to make that school, you know, when you're clear in yourself and you're not doing it for the wrong reasons, you're not doing it from fear, you're doing it and being empowered when you're doing it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where it really comes back to knowing yourself. And I think there's this fine line, this balance between, I love to call it divine flow, where, you know, it's just, you feel it. You're just with that universal flow and you're following guidance and you're following that golden thread. And then there's this other between you're forcing things to happen. And it's almost like that integration between, which is within us all, that masculine and feminine energy. And when we allow ourselves to integrate and live it fully integrated, body, soul, mind, masculine, feminine, connected, and authentically, right? So I love that you say that, because it's like when we're in that place, we know if, oh, okay, I'm forcing something. Yes, I'm having this human experience, but I'm forcing this. And then it's like, okay, I actually need to be in action right now. So it's kind of finding that balance between both and finding a way to marry it, and being aware if you're in that forcing kind of more masculine.
But then there's sometimes, though, I mean, I can find that feminine can be very forceful too. I wouldn't classify force as purely a masculine energy, but what my sense is that the resistance could also mean not yet. Now is not the time yet for that. Yes, this is something that needs to be done, but you need to do all of these other things first. And I find with clients, if I say, right, this is the work that I believe we need to do, and then they freeze, I say to them, but we're not going to do that today. What we're going to do is look at all the reasons why you don't want to do it. And the relief there is huge. And just by releasing, it's like, I don't know if anybody knows HTML coding, but there's the actual code, which is the color and the size of the font and all of that. But then there's the code that goes on top of that, which is the hidden stuff, the meta tags, the description about what's going on the page. Like, this page belongs to this website and this page is about this. And when you're doing your work, you're always thinking that you're in the code, you're doing it in the moment, but there's actually work to be done around doing the work, the meta tags, the higher part, which is, well, what's the benefits if I was to go and do this work? And even though I don't feel that I want to do the work and I'm feeling huge resistance to the work, what's my biggest fear? If I do the work and I've healed this thing, I see this is the biggest piece I find that people are resistant to, and they have the idea that they're going to be healed. Then who are they then? They don't recognize themselves when they're feeling good and they're happy every day, and they're not carrying all this weight around of shame and guilt and pain and grief. And so doing work on allowing yourself to be healed, you know, what that means and how your life might look if you're confident and strong and empowered. And yes, that does impact your family. And can you handle their reactions when you're not the sick one or the moany one or the one who will do everything that they're asked to do? You know, all of that comes into play there. So it's a lot more complicated than just facing something head on in the moment as well. So I see us all as very complex but very simple. You know, it's like you zoom in, you see the simple, you zoom out, you see the complex. And to take the whole thing as a whole can be much more profound and long-lasting transformation when you look at the impact. Because when you release the fear around being your best healed self, then you're more willing to cooperate with the process. And then you have the patience also, because the process doesn't happen quickly. And it's just wonderful. But, you know, all the way through, to feel that tone, that note from your intuition, and what's real and what's true for you, what's not true, and to start to live by that, to know what your agenda is, and are you forcing something down a particular line because you're attached to an outcome. And that's a huge piece of work as well. That's massive, because you don't control anything.
I know. Isn't that amazing? And, you know, again, I mean, I'm just so grateful for everything that you share in the world and that you're sharing with us here. And it's, you know, of course, you know, I love to work with people, but also in the home. And, you know, the analogy of like, it's like clearing the clutter, you know, it's like, yeah, you're not going to clear the entire house in one day. You just start with one drawer. And the house may look a little messier for a while as you clear out that one drawer, but then it just feels so amazing to have cleared that one drawer, and it actually inspires you to want to clear the closet or even the full room, and it's like a step by step, but also really honoring and loving yourself through the whole process of clearing your clutter energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally, or out of your home.
Absolutely. And, you know, I use houses all the time as metaphors. You know, how does the whole house look from the outside? And then how does it look from the inside? How does it feel to be in there? And I suppose that's another way of what I was saying earlier about the meta tags, the greater piece, the whole piece. You know, you could be in this little room and not realize that you're living in a castle, because you've never actually come out of the room, you know, and so it's terrifying. Then I might get lost in the castle and never find my way back. So sometimes working with images, I find as well, is direct, communication with the soul, and your soul will tell you, you know, but yes, it might be scary, but you've got this most wonderful back garden that you've never been in before, and that's really where you need to go and sit.
I love that. Thank you so much for all of this incredible wisdom that you have shared with us today. I would love to just kind of ask for kind of our closing, what are like three, I mean, you've shared so much, but three main things that you could, maybe three questions you could invite our listeners to ask themselves now over this time after
Well, that's
listening.
great. And maybe, yeah, even writing it down, because that one I asked earlier is definitely one of them. You know, can you trust yourself to look after yourself 100%? You know, that's really important. And then as in, like a subheading to that one would be, what's in the way of that? You know, so what is it in you that does not allow you to look after you? And, you know, typically, Amanda, I'm sure most of your audience would be empathic caregivers. And so it's always putting the other person ahead of me. So why should I spend all this time looking after me when mama needs it, my sister needs it, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So you have to clear that. You really have to clear that. So the next one, and one that's a really powerful one, is coming into balance with the idea that you no longer need to cause yourself emotional pain. You don't need to hurt yourself anymore. And again, you know, so if you write that down, you're going to be writing from the I, which is, I no longer need to cause myself emotional pain. And what does that feel like to say out loud? And where do you feel the resistance in your chest? And, you know, what's the work you need to do around that? That's huge. And then the last one I would give you isn't look in the mirror and say, I love you to yourself, because, you know, I'm Irish, right? We can't do that. That's the end of the fact of the matter. We can't. But if you could say to yourself, I am learning how to love myself a little bit more every day. And just come into balance with that and allow yourself to have that. So you can say, I'm learning how to love myself a little bit more every day, and see how it links back to the other two. And then sit down in silence and still the mind and write your lists and see, is this a story that I'm telling myself? Is this true? And, you know, just to close, Amanda, you know, there's so much that you will come up with just working with those few things. Please don't feel that you have to do it all by yourself. Okay, we are here, you know, to look after each other. And you have probably been looking after someone all of this time. And it's time to get that reciprocate, to be validated as an individual who also deserves love and support So, encapsulate the issue. It's just like I said to the guy, the art teacher, figure out what it is you want and come to me. I will make an appointment together. We'll talk about it. Figure out what it is that you need help healing and go and get some help. Don't leave it, because, you'll get trapped in the day-to-day again, and you'll let it slide, and it will stay being that weight that you carry around with you. Go and get help. And if you're not sure who to ask for help, you've got the How to Choose a Therapist and Therapy on my website with all the questions to ask. Ask your friends, who have you been to, who's good, and know that you deserve it. And go there with the real issue, not the little, tiny issue that's dancing around the big issue, but bring that big issue in and know what it is you're talking about, and say to that person, I'm resistant to doing this work and I need some help with this. And let's look at why I'm resistant to it first, instead of diving straight in.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for that reminder. And that leads me to a question I would love to ask you, because you do so much incredible work in the world as a mom and a wife and an author, and you facilitate so much healing. How may I and all of our listeners here be of service to you?
Wow. Well, go and buy my books. I've got this wonderful new one called One Day at a Time. It's a diary, and it's got affirmations in it for every day, and I'm giving support on that. How can you be of service to me? Truly, my mission here is to help people help themselves, to empower people to empower themselves. So by you taking seriously what I've said and doing your own work, doing that work, going to those places, I'm here. I do sessions 1-to-1. I've got healing groups. I've got a healing circle. You can come and join me, and you can dip your toe in, or you can jump in completely, and it's completely up to you. But yeah, because the more of us that shine our lights as bright as they can be, that walk our authentic walk and live with integrity, is what changes the world. And that's really what we can all do for each other, I think. So yeah.
That is beautiful. Thank you, Abby. Thank you for your wisdom and your light and your love that you've shared with us here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here anytime.
That was so amazing getting to chat with Abby. And now, as always, I love to hear from you. So I would like to just leave you with one last question. How in your life is one action step you can take today to live a more authentic life? What are you willing to say no to that you've been meaning to say no to? Or what are you willing to say yes to that you've been meaning to say yes to? I'll look forward to responding to your answers on the amandacollins.com website. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to theamandacollins.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Collins podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacollins.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love,